What if you are not really you? No, I'm not joking. How do you even explain that the person sitting here right now is the same one who was alive yesterday? I know, that's a tough question. Don't worry, I've got some answers lined up for you. You just have to pick one. So, what exactly are you? Christianity says a soul. Eternal, divine, independent of the body. Life on earth is just training for eternity. Maybe consciousness? A philosopher once said, I think therefore I am. Psychologists might say, you are your habits, your memories, your ways of thinking and feeling. But neuroscience went further than anyone. It looked inside the brain and found something shocking. There is no center of self, no single spot where your I lives, which means maybe you are nothing more than a brain function. Something that can be altered, erased, even split apart. Erased me? Okay, that's it. I'm done. Next video. But wait, this is where the choice comes in, because I might actually be your choice.
What?
Stick with me. Today we'll see how the brain simulates a self, why you can sometimes feel like a stranger inside your own body, and why dozens of voices inside your head don't make you crazy. What do a Tibetan monk, an ancient Greek philosopher, and a medieval farmer have in common? At first glance, nothing. But all of them are absolutely sure. I am me. You wake up in the morning and everything feels intact. Memories, habits, preferences. I like pasta, I hate rainy days, and I always fall asleep with YouTube playing. That's me, right? We all think we know who we are, but try to explain it logically, step by step, and it falls apart. It feels like we build our personality ourselves, but take a wider view. What's left of you without your memories, your hobbies, your worldview? We learn to think, feel, even dream through the culture we grow up in. Sometimes the script is handed to us from childhood. Be strong, be nice, don't stand out, work hard. If you had grown up in a different country with a different language, different traditions, your faith would be different. What feels normal today would feel strange. So habits, preferences, aren't just your choices. They're reflections of the environment around you. Personality is a mirror. Think back. Who were you at age 5? At 15? Yesterday? You probably feel like you remember. But what you recall is not the raw memory. It's a story about yourself, reconstructed every time you bring it up. That reconstruction depends on brain structures. The hippocampus, your long-term memory librarian, the prefrontal cortex, planning and reflection, and something called the default mode network, DMN, a brain system that lights up when you think about yourself. Studies show when the DMN is active, the brain often slips into an inner monologue, retelling your own biography. Each time you say, "This is who I am," your brain is replaying a story, one that feels believable but not always true. The point is not accuracy, the point is coherence. So personality isn't a fixed essence. It's a feedback loop of memories and context, rewritten constantly. Every day adds a new layer. As neuroscientist Anil Seth says, we don't perceive reality directly, we predict it. The same goes for the self. In short, personality is a process, reconstructed every moment, which leaves one big question. What exactly is the brain piecing together when it creates you? You're lying down, doing nothing, not scrolling your phone, not staring at the ceiling in deep thought, just zoning out. It feels like nothing's happening, but in that moment, your brain is firing on all cylinders. Brain scans show that when you're at rest, a network called the default mode network lights up. It's made up of the medial prefrontal cortex, the part that thinks about you, the posterior cingulate cortex, a hub for memory and emotion, and the hippocampus, your brain's long-term archive. In other words, even when you're resting, your brain is running a highlight reel. Who you are, what you did yesterday, what you'll say tomorrow, the things you regret, the goals you're chasing. It's a constant rehearsal of your identity. Neuropsychologists call this memory as reconstruction. Memories aren't stored like files in a cabinet. They're rebuilt every time you recall them, stitched together from past experiences, expectations, and emotions. And every time you remember, the story changes just a little. Not to trick you, but to keep the narrative smooth and believable. And alongside all that, there's always a voice in your head. Right now, you're hearing mine, but at the same time, there's another, your own narrator, commenting on what you feel, why you're watching this, and what you'll do next. That inner storyteller rarely shuts up. Scientists call it the narrative self. It's not an organ, but a function, the glue that binds together memories, sensations, emotions, and social context into a single sense of me. In short, your identity is a story you tell yourself over and over, even if half of it is made up. The psychologist Jerome Bruner once said, "If you want to understand someone, listen to the stories they tell about themselves." And that's exactly it. Every day we explain ourselves to ourselves, why we act the way we do, why we're like this and not that. And that ongoing explanation becomes the foundation of our personality. Think of it like an orchestra. Today, the violin takes the lead, and you're gentle, attentive. Tomorrow, the drums kick in, and you're sharp, decisive. Each is just a temporary state, but the conductor, that inner narrator, keeps them all playing in sync. Up until now, everything sounded almost elegant. The self as a story, a process, an orchestra. But every process can glitch, and when it does, that familiar picture of me can suddenly fall apart. Maybe you've had this moment. You're staring into the mirror thinking, that's me, that's how I look, that's how I think. I'm the one living in this body. And then something slips, a tiny brain lag. Suddenly you feel like you're watching yourself from the outside. And if you try to answer, why exactly am I me? There's no clear response. For some people, it's just a flicker. For others, it drags on for days, weeks, even months. Psychologists call this depersonalization, when your body, your voice, even your thoughts feel alien. Scientists have long known the brain is surprisingly easy to trick. One of the most famous experiments is the rubber hand illusion. You sit at a table, a fake hand is placed in front of you while your real one is hidden. Both hands, real and fake, are stroked at the same time. After just a minute, your brain rewrites the map. The rubber hand feels like it's yours. And if someone smacks it, your body jerks as if you were hit. And then there's a darker example. The year is 1961 in the US. Psychologist Stanley Milgram wanted to test obedience to authority.
Would you open those and tell me which of you is which, please? Teacher. Where? Teacher.
Volunteers were told, you're the teacher. Behind that wall is a student. Every wrong answer and you to press the button. He gets an electric shock.
Answer horse.
At first the shocks were mild, then stronger. The student started screaming, begging, then fell silent. The researcher in the white coat calmly insisted, please continue.
Get me out of here, please.
Continue, please. Go right on.
I refuse to go on. Let me out.
He refuses to go on. The experiment requires you continue, teacher. Please continue.
And most people did. Not because they were cruel, but because their brains flipped into another mode. I'm just playing my role. 62% of participants went all the way to the maximum. 450 volts, a level they thought could kill.
375 volts. I think something's happened to that fellow in there. I don't get no answer. He was hollering a less voltage. Can't you check in and see if he's all right, please?
And afterward, they justified themselves. It wasn't me, it was the experiment. I just did what I was told. What does this show? The self is fragile. It can be tricked, split, rewritten. Sometimes it shifts just because the situations shift. And this isn't only in labs or clinics. Think about it. You alone at home, you with friends, you at work, same person, totally different behavior. In psychology, this is called a context-dependent self. There's even a principle. Situations are stronger than traits. The most extreme example? The Stanford prison experiment. Ordinary students were randomly assigned roles of guards or prisoners. Within days, guards became harsh, prisoners submissive. The experiment had to be shut down early. So what's the takeaway? There is no single true you. There's only a process that adapts to context over and over again. Philosophers call this the continuum of identity, the idea that there's no fixed point called you. There's only the ongoing flow of adaptation. In the end, the self isn't fixed at all. It's a set of roles that come alive when needed. It's not static, it's alive. We usually think of personality as something whole, a single solid self. But if the brain itself can split perception, shut down emotions, or create multiple selves inside one body, maybe multiplicity isn't the exception. Maybe it's the rule. Modern therapy is starting to see it this way. Take the approach called internal family systems. It says we don't have just one I, but a whole inner family. An anxious part, a protective part, a critical part, a wounded part. Each steps in at different times, each with its own logic. The founder of the method, psychologist Richard Schwartz, put it simply, a person isn't one voice. A person is a choir. And the goal isn't to silence the choir, it's to learn to listen to it. That's when inner order appears. And you can notice it in everyday life. In the morning, one version of you shows up. With friends, another. In negotiations, a third. It's not fake. It's adaptation. The mind switches modes to survive, to understand, to protect. Carl Jung spoke about the same thing in a different way. He called them archetypes, universal roles we all carry. The hero, the protector, the trickster, the child. We don't have to pick just one. You can think of yourself not as a single role, but as the stage where these roles take turns appearing. Yes, it sounds poetic, but sometimes that's exactly how it feels. And inner conflicts? Everyone knows them. Part of me wants to leave, another part wants to stay. That's not just a metaphor, it's the brain describing its real multiplicity. Modern psychology suggests that maturity is exactly this, the ability to negotiate with yourself, to hear every part. Not to crush anxiety, but to ask what it's trying to say. Not to fight laziness, but to understand what it's holding you back from. And that's where resilience comes from. When one part can't handle the load, another steps in. Not because you're broken, but because you've got a whole team inside. And that team is alive. We started with the scary stuff. Cases where personality gets erased, split, or disappears. But step by step, the pattern became clear. Multiplicity isn't an anomaly, it's the rule. Whether we like it or not, we have to accept that. The sense of I is not a solid object. It's a process. Different parts of your mind stepping in at different times. And our task isn't to force them into one voice, but to learn how to live with all of them together. Modern psychology has stopped searching for some core self. Instead, it looks at actions, reactions, and the stories we tell about ourselves. And the idea keeps coming back. Personality isn't a thing. It's a process. Every choice, every habit, every decision is born out of negotiations between inner voices. There isn't one central command center. There's a system, and its strength lies in harmony. We fear the inner noise, but noise isn't the enemy. It shows up when one part tries to silence the others. When we stop hearing the full choir inside. Maturity isn't about finding your true self. It's about hearing each part, accepting it, and not being afraid that doing so makes you weaker. You don't have to be whole. You don't have to be just one. The point is to be alive. And being alive means changing. There's order in that too, just a different kind. And if what I've been saying feels close to you, write which part of you resonated with this. That's the real work. Piecing yourself together by learning to listen. Subscribe if you want to keep exploring what we're really made of. There won't be easy answers here, but there will be honest conversations. See ya in the next version of you.